Wake up, you ain't heard the news. Thank you for joining me here on the Fast Break Sports Hour, August 29th edition. What's going on, everybody? Fast Break Sports Hour, live and well, Wednesday afternoon. Didn't get a show in yesterday. You know, there's always something happening in sports, but it was a slower day in sports Monday night, Tuesday morning. But we definitely got some things that we want to talk about today, especially in the NFL, where there's a couple of big things that hit the wire involving a couple quarterbacks. And first off, going to start with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron freaking Rodgers finally gets his deal done. He already had 2 years left on his deal, but he was seeing all these other deals come through the wire. He saw Matt Ryan get his money. He saw Kirk Cousins get his money, and all the others ahead of him. And we were all waiting to see if Aaron Rodgers was going to be the highest paid NFL quarterback, which I believe he deserves to be. But with this new extension, now the extension makes him the highest paid just when it comes to the 4 year 134 million when you look at it that way. But what you really have to do is look at the totality of the contract, which puts him there when it comes to average around what Kirk Cousins makes every year. And when it comes to guaranteed money, it's around the same as Matt Ryan. So he really didn't set the new level. Like I said, the extension definitely put him up there. The 4 years, 134, but he still had a 2 year, $39 million contract left over. So that just adds to that, which actually makes it a 6 year, $174 million deal, which is essentially a little over $29 million a year, and puts him right there, right at the top with those other two quarterbacks. Again, the bigger question is, and you have to ask, it's out there. Did the Packers win in this deal, or did Aaron Rodgers win in this deal? And when you look at it, it's definitely a quarterback friendly, a team friendly deal. So I think both sides win because he does get put, in the upper echelon as far as how much he was getting paid. Because prior to this, he was making 19 to 20 million a year, and that's what he had left over on his contract. So with that, with the extension, it jumps him up there with the Matt Ryans, with the Kirk Cousins, with all the other quarterbacks that have recently gotten paid into that 26, 27, 28 million dollar range, and rightfully so. But here's the thing: when you look at all these quarterbacks in totality, what's going on, man? What's going on, Chewy? What's up, Mother? What's up, Brian? What's going on? Thank you for joining me here live. When you look at the totality of all the quarterbacks in the league and Aaron Rodgers himself, Aaron Rodgers could have easily garnered 35, 36 million a year in totality. Rip up the 2 years, 40 million, and let's just do a whole new deal, as opposed to just adding 4 years to the 2 years. And so it worked on his contract and then jump into, being the highest paid quarterback. But it all just goes together and it evens out. It goes back to what Tom Brady had been doing, because really, Tom Brady should have been the highest paid quarterback for the last 10 years, easy. And you can argue even before that, he deserved to be the highest paid quarterback. But he's always been middle of the pack, and lately was in the back of the pack, making around 16, 17 million, just so that his team, can. And that's the odd part. He did it so that his team had other ways to maneuver money around and bring players in. But you never really saw any of these big time players come in, especially on the offensive side, besides that 1 year when they had Wes Welker and Randy Moss. So, I mean, you have to wonder, the Patriots, they don't like paying their stars top notch money. So you got to give it to Tom Brady for doing something like that. And man, you want to do a shout out to Bruno the Pug, man. What's up, Bruno the Pug? What's up, man? That's the last time I'm gonna shout out a pug on this show. So that's the once and one time only. That's what you get. But yeah. So this Aaron Rodgers deal, though it's in the 29, $30 million range when it comes to just the 6 years total, he's still slightly getting underpaid when it comes to all the quarterbacks in the league. He should have set that new bar, but he just added to the top of the bar. He landed where the top was at, which is fine. You know, you didn't he definitely wasn't going to get 26, 27 million a year and then go off from there. And I think they finally just said, you know what, let's put this contract together. Let's make the 4 year extension the main part, the meat of this contract, and then just honor the 2 years that was left. And that's all you can do. So I think they both met, you know, they met right in the middle, and he got the contract that he wanted. So now, with that being a 6 year contract, when his deal is done, he's going to be 40 years old. Now, I don't see him stopping play at the age of 40, especially the way these quarterbacks are playing now. You look at Drew Brees in his 40s, Tom Brady in his 40s. The way it's going now, that's, man, by the time you get to 36, 37, 38, that's when you start cooking. You know, and he's already been cooking. You know, he's been through a couple injuries the past few years, but you have to wonder if he's going to go through the whole 6 years with the Packers, or if it's going to be something to where at the, you know, after 5 years he gets released, or once his contract is up, does he go play for another team for a couple years? But that's, you know, that's off into the future. He'll definitely be well into his late 30s, right at 40 if he finishes his contract. So that's the bigger question now. Is he going to finish his career as a Packer? We all thought Brett Favre was going to finish his career as a Packer. Didn't end up happening, all due because of Aaron Rodgers getting drafted and then pushing the Favre out the door for Aaron Rodgers. And right move. It was perfect timing. You know, it was one of those things that when it was happening, when you saw Brett Favre kind of get forced out, and at first it seemed like he wanted to retire. But what we didn't know was more so, you better retire. If not, we're going to cut you. So it's one of those things where, okay, you got to, your pride is on the line. I don't want to get fired. I'd rather just say, you know what, I'm done and step away. But that fire was still in Brett Favre. So when that was happening, I felt bad for the dude. And I was like, how could a team like this do it to a player of his magnitude, bringing that Super Bowl competitiveness, Super Bowl championships back to Green Bay? And yes, he only got one Super Bowl, made it to two, but just to climb over the teams that he had issues with in the 90s, whether it was the Cowboys or the Niners, he was able to jump over them, bring that championship back to Lambeau, and then lose the next one to John Elway. Man, that's just how it works when you work. Man, that's how it works for the Broncos. You know, it comes full circle. We got to bring up the GOAT in John Elway, but there's a lot of GOATs on this show, man. But Brett Favre, when that happened, it was a shocker to all of us. And then him just coming out later saying, you know what, I still want to play. And then him having to go through the whole New York Jets just to get to Minnesota. And you can tell he had a couple years left in his game. So, but again, it was the right move when you look at it, hindsight 2020. When you look, he's been in the league, and you know he had his rough times there in that first year. I think the Packers were 6-10 the first year Aaron Rodgers took over. But that's going to happen. And then it went from that to Peyton Manning, where there's no way Peyton Manning was not going to be an Indianapolis Colt. All it took was for, you know, a couple of surgeries on his neck, and then them having a real bad season and having the option to draft Andrew Luck and saying, you know what, there's no reason to keep Peyton around. We're not gonna bring Andrew Luck along, you know, quietly and slowly and have him sit behind Peyton, because they didn't know what they had in Peyton. So once you saw them basically say, you know what, you're done here, that's when you knew there is no such thing as ties when it comes to a franchise quarterback. And that's the upper echelon. That's it. There is nothing more important than a franchise quarterback. So nobody is safe at any point, especially when they see your clock start to tick. And it's like, we got to start finding the replacement. And with that, I'm going to jump to another quarterback who the clock's ticking, and they made a move today. Drew Brees with the New Orleans Saints. That's another quarterback you look at. Started his career with the San Diego Chargers, not the LA Chargers, the San Diego Chargers for you new NFL fans. The San Diego Chargers. He was pushed out by Phillip Rivers, ends up signing with the Saints. Saints were iffy, you know, about signing Drew Brees because of the shoulder situation. He it was a toss up between the Saints and the Miami Dolphins that offseason. And the Dolphins said, you know what? We don't like the way his shoulder's looking. The Dolphins went for Culpepper, and the rest is history. Hey, what did Dante Culpepper didn't do nothing. Dante Chili Pepper, none of that. It didn't work anymore. Y'all remember this? Yeah, that didn't happen much after Randy Moss and the Minnesota Vikings. With Drew Brees now, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, crushing all the stats in NFL record books. Has a couple of records of his own, and you have to wonder with the move they made today, and at some point Drew Brees was going to be replaced, and maybe this might be Drew Brees last year. But with the Saints sending a third over to the Jets and bringing Teddy Bridgewater, that's a perfect transition because Teddy Bridgewater is ready to take that next step, and I think it's a perfect handoff for a team that wants to continue winning ways. So with Sean Payton there, you have to wonder if Sean Payton and Drew Brees are tied at the hip, and where Drew Brees goes, Sean Payton goes. So that's going to be something to see this year, because if you look at Drew Brees last year, though it was a very successful season and they ended up losing in the divisional round because of that crazy play against the Minnesota Vikings and Case Keenum, last play of the game, where things don't happen like this. That's football. It happened. Big play at the end of the game to Stephon Diggs. With that being a great season, his stats took a hit last year. And those of you that do fantasy football, you guys saw that firsthand. He barely got to 20 touchdowns, and the yardage wasn't what it usually is. He's usually number one when it comes to passing yards, and last year it wasn't. So you kind of saw that, and you also have to add in the fact that Alvin Kamara came out of nowhere. That him being a third round draft pick, I bet you when they drafted him, they expected him to be like a third down back, maybe fill in for Mark Ingram, but he became, more so 1A, 1B when you look at those two running backs. So that can be part of it, and I think that helps Drew Brees, and I think that's why they got to where they got to, because the defense was also intact, especially with the draft that they had in the secondary. So the Saints trading their third to the Jets for Teddy Bridgewater, perfect transition, especially if this is Drew Brees last year. It can be. I think it's very highly. What can you say if Drew Brees ends up getting back to the Super Bowl this year, or close to it, and then he closes that book and says, you know what, I'm done. It's been a wonderful season. He's going to go down as a top 5 quarterback of all time, not just because of his size, but all that aside, he's been one of the top quarterbacks in the history that I've ever seen. And you add the size to that, you're like, man, that's incredible how he was able to still at 5'11", 6 foot. They'll bill him at like 6'1". He's not 6'1". To still be able to be the best quarterback year after year after year, or in that group, that's incredible. That's wonderful for a quarterback like Drew Brees. So the Saints making that move today, getting Teddy Bridgewater out of the hellhole of the New York Jets. And with the New York Jets trading Teddy Bridgewater, they're basically telling you that they're ready for next year's draft. Because with Sam Darnold and Josh McCown as your quarterbacks for the Jets, they're not going to win much this year. You're looking at 3-13 New York Jet fans. You might think about doing what that New York Knicks fan did and sell your fandom for that team and go to another team. There was a New York Knicks fan that sold his fandom, basically. He said, I'm going to be a Lakers fan now. I believe it was the Lakers. He's like, I'm going to root for the Lakers, this, that, and the other. So, New York Jet fans, what are you waiting for? No, I'm just kidding. But again, that's what the Jets are looking like. They're going to look like a 3-13 team. So if you have the Jets on your schedule, you have a different team and the Jets are on your schedule, that's a win. Again, whether it's Darnold or McCown, you're looking at 3 or 4 wins. So the Jets just basically sealed that. They're waiting for next year's draft, trying to get another top 5 pick. And that's the way it's looking like. And they're rebuilding. That's a bad thing for Todd Bowles. I think he had he was clear of any blame when it came to how the Jets were playing, because he was, he's only been the coach for that team for a couple years. But I think this is that year where it might be a wrap if they can't overachieved once again because they overachieved last year. Let's be real with it. The Jets overachieved last year. The Jets were looking like a team that was going to be 1-15, 2-14. And they definitely overachieved and they got way more wins than that. I believe they ended up 7-9, somewhere around there. So that was definitely a plus for them. 7-9, 6-10, I believe. But even at that, that was incredible for that team because that was one of the teams that was marked as one of the least talented teams when it came to just depth and even the starters. So there's that news when it comes to just quarterbacks and the trickle down effect. And man, it got me thinking. It got me thinking with all this quarterback maneuvers and contracts being signed. There was also a thing where Ben Roethlisberger was talking about he feels, better than ever. That he feels like this is his year. His arm's feeling great, and I want to touch on that a little bit because Ben Roethlisberger, along with Aaron Rodgers, more so Big Ben. When you look at Big Ben's career, especially that first Super Bowl, it wasn't because of him. They didn't win that first Super Bowl because of him. They won that first Super Bowl because it was a complete team and that defense was awesome back then. And he was just part of it. He was that quarterback where don't make mistakes and we'll win games. So he was the what they call the game manager. Just manage the game. Do not make any big mistakes, and we'll be all right. And he was that for the first couple years. And then he got to the second Super Bowl where he played against the Arizona Cardinals, where the Arizona Cardinals just got hot with Kurt Warner, Larry Fitzgerald, and they just ran through the NFC playoffs. They came out of nowhere. So they ended up playing the Cardinals and almost lost that game. Man, that was one of the best Super Bowls ever. And he played pretty decent in that game, but you have to wonder if another team out of the NFC would have came out, would Ben Roethlisberger have won that second championship? But I'll give him that. I'll give him the one championship. The first one, man, you had a lot of help, but he has two championships either way. He went back to a third Super Bowl and wasn't able to get the job done against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. If you remember, the Green Bay Packers were a wild card team. They were that team that just came out of nowhere themselves, where they barely got into the playoffs and they just got hot. And they just started beating everybody in the playoffs like nothing. And they got to the Super Bowl and fairly decent game. They pulled away from the Steelers early on, and the Steelers were playing catch up the rest of the game. Almost made the comeback, but weren't able to finish it off. Aaron Rodgers got his first Super Bowl. But since then, Big Ben has had, obviously, Antonio Brown, arguably the best receiver in the game, Le'Veon Bell, arguably the best running back in the game, and they've had good number two receivers, fairly decent tight ends, but he hasn't been able to get past the New England Patriots and last year the Jacksonville Jaguars. There was one year in there where he lost to the Denver Broncos. So you have to think about where is he when you try to level him with other quarterbacks? Even just putting him with Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning. When it comes to Eli Manning during the regular season, I give it to Ben Roethlisberger. When it comes to just stats. But when it comes to the playoffs, man, Eli Manning is flawless when it comes to the playoffs. And it's many will say that it was also the defense that carried Eli Manning, but a lot of those games prior to the Super Bowls, Eli Manning was having great games. Look it up. I'm not here to jump on Eli Manning's horse or whatever, but just look it up and you will see how he stepped his games up in the playoffs. And you look at Phillip Rivers, again, another guy, they can go back and forth. You can pick either two of those guys when it comes to the regular season. But playoffs, Phillip Rivers, though this is the year, man. This is the year where Phillip Rivers has to do something. He has to do something this year because I think at the end of the day, you look at quarterbacks like Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, and Phillip Rivers, and you look at what they did in the playoffs. Now, many will say, well, Phillip Rivers has all the stats. It's kind of like Dan Marino. No, Dan Marino went to the playoffs multiple years, and he made it to the Super Bowl one year. Phillip Rivers has not done none of that. He had that one good year where they were able to beat the Colts. They were able to get to the AFC Championship game, but then lose to the Patriots. But every other year that he got there, I think it was two other times, uh, they were losing in the first game. Even when they were the number one, they were the number one seed. If you guys remember, it was like 2007. The Patriots weren't supposed to be this good. You know, the Patriots were just they barely got to the playoffs, and it's odd to say that, but they weren't that good that year. And the Chargers were the number one team, and the Patriots came in and they stole that game. If you guys remember, they all stood in the middle of the field and started doing the the Sean Merriman lights out dance where Tomlinson kind of got upset, and that's another story. But the Chargers have also been one of those teams that have underachieved with the talent that they've had around them. So you look at those two quarterbacks. Again, Ben Roethlisberger has his two Super Bowls, and he has the third one that he went to. But lately, in the last 5-6 years, there hasn't been much done there where you would think that the Steelers would at least be in one Super Bowl. So that I think with him saying that, there's pressure. I mean, I think this is the year that if Pittsburgh does not get to the Super Bowl, man, you got to start thinking about their window closing up, especially with Le'Veon Bell. Could be his last year there with this franchise tag and him still not showing up, but I believe he'll be there. I believe he'll show up for week one. But Antonio Brown's not going to be any younger. Again, Le'Veon Bell might leave after next year. And then obviously Ben Roethlisberger going to add another year to his career. So I think this is the year where Ben Roethlisberger has to not just get into the playoffs, but get deep and try to get to that Super Bowl. And this is the window. This is that window for Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it had me thinking about some other quarterbacks that it's like they're held in higher regards than what they should be, like a Matthew Stafford. I don't see the shine on that quarterback, but a lot of people like to talk about him like, man, I wish I had him as a quarterback. Why? He's made the playoffs twice in his career, and he has 0 victories. Why? Because he puts up 4,000 yards. I mean, at some point, stats aren't end all be all. At some point, you have to win games in the playoffs. And I think that's where you start saying, and not to say that anybody's argued about Matthew Stafford being a Hall of Famer, but when I hear a lot of people talk about how Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback than Joe Flacco, Joe Flacco has a Super Bowl. Joe Flacco has come up clutch in the playoffs. Whether it's the Patriots, the Broncos, he's come up clutch. And again, he has that Super Bowl victory. When they say, I'd rather have Matthew Stafford than Eli Manning. Eli Manning again. The guy's 8-3 in playoffs. 2 Super Bowls. Matthew Stafford's 0-2. Every other season can't get to the playoffs. So I hate that argument. I hate it where it's, no, at some point, if you're that great of a quarterback, you need to be able to carry the team. And it's not like he's just had trash with him. He's always had receivers on his team. He's probably never really had the run game, but he's always had receivers. He's had decent tight ends, and the defense has been average, So at some point, he needs to take that next step. And that's another guy I'll be looking at this year where it's like, at some point, when do you start judging a quarterback for either getting you to the playoffs or not? Because I tell you what, if you think that if Aaron Rodgers plays a whole season and they don't get to the playoffs, they're not coming for his head, he's expected to get to the playoffs every single year. And he has, again, his contract's up there with Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan. If the Falcons don't make the playoffs, it's like, hey, whatever. We got Matt Ryan. So it's crazy how we put some of these quarterbacks under more pressure. But that's when you know if these quarterbacks are the best or in the top 2 or 3. Tom Brady, we expect him to get there. If they don't get to the playoffs, it's like, oh my God, it's over. It's over for them. I just said it now. If the Steelers don't get it done, it's over for them. But because we hold these quarterbacks in higher regards. And it's time that we hold other quarterbacks that are held in higher regards than quarterbacks that have actually won to a higher standard. Quarterbacks, again, like Matthew Stafford. Come on. At some point, got to see production. Slowly getting into that, you're going to see quarterbacks like Derek Carr. At some point, you got to get to the playoffs. At some point, that's where, Patrick Mahomes, first-year player, would not be surprised if he gets to the playoffs before Derek Carr does again. And Derek Carr's never played a playoff game. Yeah, he had that one great season where he got hurt. Never been in the playoffs. Never played in a playoff game. So for me to say that I expect Mahomes in the playoffs before Derek Carr, At some point, you got to hold these quarterbacks to a higher standard. You look at quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, you know, been to the playoffs. They lost that first game, but he been to the playoffs, and he's going into his third year. He has the pressure of being the Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback. I don't expect them to get to the playoffs this year, and I'm not going to hold his feet to the fire if they don't, unless he has a very terrible season, which I don't think he'll have a terrible season. I think it'll be decent, pretty good. But I don't expect them to get to the playoffs. But Cowboy fans expect them to get to the playoffs and then some. Even when they had Tony Romo, there was no and then some. That's just the way Cowboy fans are. But I'm keeping it real. So you look at how we hold these quarterbacks in different. Man, I'm telling you, as a Denver Bronco fan, going through the likes of John Elway, and then right after John Elway, the next best guy was Jake Plummer, and you guys can, I'm not, you know what, I'm not, footing around. Jake Plummer had a badass record when he was with the Denver Broncos. You got him on a winning team, and he actually started to win. Yeah, he would have his bad games. That's what Jake Plummer did. He would have great games and he would have bad games. But Jake Plummer, we held him to a high regard, and he was only there for 3 years because of it. He got to the AFC Championship game, and after that, he was replaced by Jay Cutler midseason. And they were like 7-3, 7-4 when he got replaced. And Jay Cutler, man, at what point does Matthew Stafford not become Jay Cutler when it comes to all of the notoriety, all of the big talk? Like, man, he has everything. At what point do we start saying Matthew Stafford is Jay Cutler? I'm just saying the attitude's different. I'm not comparing them when it comes to attitude, but when it comes to gameplay and getting your team to that next level, it's the same thing. And that's just what it is. Because you already have these other quarterbacks, these young quarterbacks, already got wins in the playoffs. Mariota has a win in the playoffs. Blake Bortles, yeah, he already has a win in the playoffs. 2 wins in the playoffs. So there's that. So we got to look at the whole thing and treat these quarterbacks on even level because they are your franchise's leaders, and start saying, you know what, this guy's done what he's done and he deserves to be right here. But what we're doing is we're putting these guys that haven't done anything, but because they look nice and they put up beautiful stats, we're putting them ahead of guys that are actually winning. That's not, we can't be doing that. So again, Aaron Rodgers with that big deal. Now, if with him being healthy, now it's his turn to get back to the Super Bowl because he's been there once, but that's not going to be enough, especially not with you being the highest paid quarterback and then Matt Ryan being one of the top paid quarterbacks. Got to the Super Bowl, nothing much after that, and nothing much before that. So another guy, and then you got Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins with all that guaranteed money for those 3 years, at $84 million guaranteed. It's time for him to get to the playoffs. So these quarterbacks on heavy alert. Watch out because I'm coming for your head, man. But yeah, coming from a long line of quarterbacks, when it comes to John Elway, Jake Plummer, and then we had a little, we had some bad quarterbacks in there. We had Tim Tebow. We won a playoff game with Tim Tebow. We thought that was the greatest thing ever. But then came the sheriff, Peyton Manning. Can you believe that? We had John Elway and Peyton Manning. And we won 3 Super Bowls with those guys. 3 Super Bowls. And we went to 7 Super Bowls with those guys. Man, that's incredible. That's some lovely stuff. That's wonderful. So with that being said, now the torch went from that to Case Keenum. You was in the NFC Championship game last year. Good for you. So now you're expected to get back to the playoffs, and that's just the pressure that fans of good teams with great quarterbacks expect. And I don't hold it anything less to quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers. You got to do something this year. That's all I'm going to say about that. I don't know. I just felt like I had to talk about these quarterbacks and how it's not fair sometimes that we talk trash about quarterbacks that have already won. Doesn't make any sense to me. And I kind of did that to Ben Roethlisberger. But lately, man, at some point, with you having those weapons, it's like this year. Eli's got those weapons. You better get to the playoffs. or else I'm gonna start thinking about saying, you know what, maybe you're the problem. So, and unfortunately, that's what they do. The quarterbacks attached with the coach. One of them is always going to have to go if there's a bad season. It's one or the other. And if it's a quarterback that has some clout, that has a good backing, and obviously has done what he's done, it's going to be the coach. So the Jets with Sam Darnold, Josh McCown. Sorry, Todd Bowles, but this might be your last season because of that decision. To me, I had said it before, Teddy Bridgewater should have been starting if you wanted to win games, but it's obvious they do not want to win games. They want to start their rebuild and let Sam Darnold go out there, let him go, I guess. I mean, might as well. But you're going to go 3-13, 4-12. That's my opinion. That's all I can say about that and the NFL. Let's move over quickly to some baseball. Man, we had talked about the weekend the Dodgers had, and they went 3-0. Yes, they swept the Padres, along with the Rockies going 1-2, along with the D-backs going 1-2. And then the Dodgers were off Monday, but the D-backs and the Rockies were not off Monday, and they both lost. Thank you. And then yesterday, the Dodgers, another big win. That's four in a row. Four in a row for the Dodgers. The Rockies were able to squeak out a win against the Angels, but the D-backs lost another one to the Giants. I told you the games with the D-backs and the San Francisco Giants, that wasn't going to be an easy thing, even though the Giants are out, because I saw it a couple weeks ago where the Giants took 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. When it comes to the division and the San Francisco Giants, man, they come hard. Bruce Bochy does not play, man, and he's that manager that you look at, you do not want to see him if you do something wrong. That dude looks mean, man, but that's a team that, unlike the Padres, that even though they're not going to get anywhere, they're still going to give you trouble, and they're going to give you their best. And it's the Giants, man. Every time I play the Giants, I hate that. You guys know that follow sports. The Dodgers-Giants rivalry is a thing. It's a big thing. It's just like Red Sox-Yankees, Michigan-Ohio State. That's a fact. So when I said I believe the Giants are going to give the Diamondbacks some tough sledding, it's already happened. They took the first 2. Now they have a third one. The Rockies are off tonight, but the third game tonight, Arizona at San Francisco. Man, wouldn't it be nice for Dodger fans for the Diamondbacks to get swept? Diamondbacks got to get one here. If they lose, they're not in first place anymore. And their team, man, I think the Diamondbacks have to be in first place to continue to play well. I think the moment they start falling a game or 2 out of first place, I think they're going to start doubting themselves. So I think it's a big game tonight for the D-backs to get this win, especially with Godley pitching tonight. Pitching-wise, he's good. There's nothing wrong with his pitching. The issue is anytime he gets a ball hit to him or bunted to him, he doesn't know where to throw it, or he overthrows it, and he has that issue. It's in his head. It's just an issue, So that's something to look out for. Giants, Diamondbacks. Again, the Rockies are off today, so the Rockies can jump into first place with a Diamondbacks loss. It's as easy as that. So the Rockies are going to sit back. They're going to be doing like T.O. with their popcorn ready, being like, let's go, Giants. Let's get this. And the Giants, though, even though I think they're out, they're 6 games out of the division lead. And again, if they end up sweeping the Diamondbacks, that means they covered 3 games. So they went from being back 8 games to 5 games. That's big. With about 29, 28 games left. That's big to be back 5 games, and then you play against these teams again once more around. I don't think they can do it, but crazier things have happened. We've seen teams back 9, 10 games with like 20 to go, and they come back and do this miraculous thing. Like years ago when the Rockies made that incredible run where I think they won 22 out of 23, and they were able to tie the Padres. I think the Padres were up like 8 games before they went on this crazy run, and there was like 24 games left. Man, and they were able to tie the record, and they beat the Padres in a 1-game playoff. Then they ended up, I think they beat the Diamondbacks in the series. They got to the World Series, but then they lost to the Red Sox. That was a crazy year for the Rockies, man. And I hope I said all that right. That's how I remember it. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, but that's just how crazy it is. So the Dodgers have their second game against the Rangers tonight. I don't expect anything less than a win. Rangers, last place team, looking at 5 in a row. Man, if the Dodgers can pull this off, you're looking at Dodgers, Diamondbacks for the 4-game series starting tomorrow. and they might be even. And then it's anything goes from there. Oh, can you believe that? Can you believe that if the Dodgers win, and even if the D-backs win today as well, you're looking at D-backs and then the Rockies half a game out, and the Dodgers 1 game out. And then you have the Dodgers and the D-backs playing 4 games this weekend. And then you have the Dodgers and the Rockies playing next week for a 3-game series. This thing's getting incredible. That's ridiculous. That's wonderful. That's what we live for, is to watch sports that matter. And that's all that matters. Because sports is every single day. You might have a bad day yesterday, but if your team wins, you're good to go. But if you have a good day and your team loses, that good day doesn't matter anymore, depending on how big of a sports fan you are. So that's a thing right there, man. Sports are wonderful. That's why I like doing this, because I don't just talk about it. I like watching these things, man. If I didn't have to work and I can just sit back and watch games and take notes, oh my goodness. But that might happen. That'll happen one day. But yeah, I'm sorry. I still got to work right now, so I got double duty. Oh, man, come on. Let's just do this thing right here. Again, I don't do this for nothing but because I love to do it. And that's the real with it. But other than the NL West, again, even with that, the wild card's tightening up as well, because I was talking about the Phillies been falling off. The Phillies have been one of those teams that since the beginning of August have not been able to win a series. So they've been going, 4-6, 5-5 every 10 games, and not solidifying their spot in this wild card race. And it's continued. And they lost a game last night. And that's 2 that they've lost in a row to the Nationals. So now they're 70-62. So now they're at the bottom of this wild card race, when 10 days ago they were one of the top 2 teams in the wild card. So I had mentioned which team in the next 10 days was going to fall out, and it's looking like the Phillies. But that's just right now. Man, the Phillies can win 4 or 5 in a row and they're back in this thing. And they're not out of it, but they're just at the bottom now. They are where the Dodgers were at a couple days ago. That's how this thing flip-flops. The Cardinals continue their winning ways. They're 74-58. They hold the number 1 spot in the wild card, but they're still behind the Chicago Cubs, who are 78-53. They've won 6 in a row. Again, I think they're going to be the number 1 spot. They've been the number 1 spot for the last month or so, and they're going to be playing against the team that wins the wild card. So whatever 2 teams end up in the wild card, they're going to get the winner of that. And you already know my opinion on that wild card bull sugar. I don't like that. I don't like that 1 game. Y'all got to switch that to 3 games. MLB, you're doing a lot of things good. Now fix this. Next year or the year after, let me get a 3-game series with the 2 wild card teams. Man, and that's it. You guys are perfect. You don't got to do nothing else. You don't got to put no nicknames on the back of the jerseys. You don't got to have none of that. That'll make it perfect. But hey, speaking of the nicknames on the back of the jerseys, they did this past weekend, and that was fun to see. Not just the nicknames, but the different jerseys that they came out with. You used to watching your team wearing a certain jersey, but then they come out with some different colors. And this, it makes it a little bit more interesting. I saw some teams with some ugly-ass jerseys. Yeah, ugly-ass jerseys. That was ridiculous. They're like neon yellow with brown. That don't work, man. You can't do that. But the Dodgers were looking nice because they had that blue with the baby blue. Man, that was awesome. But you got to see teams, these historic teams like the Yankees, that always wear the pinstripes. You know how they do, or they wear the gray and it just says New York. They went with the dark blue with the gray sleeves. It was still kind of classy, but it was different. And now you had the names on the back, because the Yankees don't put names on the back. So there's that. The hardcore Yankee fans are like, oh, we don't like that. Oh, I don't know how they talk, but they're from Brooklyn, That was a bad imitation of a New Yorker. I'm sorry. I apologize, but you guys talk pretty cool. But those deep down Yankee fans, they're probably like, we don't like that. We want to see the regular pinstripes. That's taken away from tradition. But it was a fun thing over the weekend to watch. Just pretty cool, man. And back to this, back to the race. I got on the wild card and I went off to like the nicknames and all that. But with this wild card, so with the Diamondbacks and the Rockies being tied in the NL West, that forces the Diamondbacks to be in a wild card race as well. So though they're tied for first place, they're also tied for the the third spot, because you have the Cardinals and the Brewers still in the 1-2. And then you have the Diamondbacks and the Rockies tied, and then you have the Dodgers. So ultimately, the Dodgers are one game out of the wild card, just like they are one game out of the division, and everything's in front of them. When you talk about the Dodgers, you talk about all these teams. They all hold their destiny. There is no, well, I hope this team loses. No, because they all play against each other. And man, 4 more weeks left when it comes to the baseball season. Every game matters. Like I said, it's been mattering for the last 2 or 3 weeks. These divisions have been going up and down. Besides the Central, with the Cubs, they solidified that spot. And now with the Phillies having this bad month, the Braves, that's going to be theirs. They have a 4.5 game lead. They still have, I believe, 6 games with the Phillies. So unless the Phillies sweep them, the Braves can just bury the Phillies. And then another side note, I always speak about. Lately, I've been talking about Kyle Jansen. Oh my God, Kenley Jansen. Why'd I get Kyle? That's crazy. Kenley Jansen. So his first 2 outings, he was pitching horrible. He had the 2 losses. He was coming in for saves, and he had 2 big losses against the Cardinals. Man, looking back at that, the Dodgers will be in a different position if he was able to solidify those wins for the Dodgers. But he had those 2 bad losses, and then he came in for another game and almost messed it up again. So what he did is supposedly, so he had told the Southern California News Group that what he had to do is he had to stop taking his medication for his heart condition, because he said he was taking it. Obviously, he had to take it, but he said he was taking it, and when he was going out on the field, he felt like he was sleepwalking out there, like he was like in a different zone. Obviously, that's what pills do. I don't know the extent to the medication, or what the side effects are, but he was saying it felt like I wasn't really there, like I was sleepwalking and I was going through the motions. And he said, it's been a couple days since I stopped using them. And he says he felt better. Yesterday he pitched 1 inning, and it looked like Kenley Jensen. So, you hope that it doesn't affect anything in the future when it comes to his health. But if that's the answer to him pitching better, that's trouble for all the other teams, because a lot of these losses the Dodgers have come into in the last 3 weeks have been because of relievers or late inning heroics, because we can't get the job done. And when I say we, I'm talking about Dodgers, because I'm a Dodger fan. Y'all should know this already. See that personalized jersey Dodgers with my name on it, because man, I'm part of the team, man. That's just how it works. You like that. You want one of those, but so he decided, you know what, I'm not going to take this medication anymore. It's helping me get back to where I want to get to, and it remains to be seen, because he pitched that one inning last night, but they were up 8-2. So could that be part of it too? I mean, the pressure is different when you're up 8-2 as opposed to it being 2-1 or 1-1. A big difference. So we'll hold back on Kenley Jansen until he's in the game and the game is tight and he's actually in for a save situation. But you just hope for the best when it comes to his health, and hopefully he figured it out. But for you Dodger fans out there, it was a good sign, and they're rolling. Being unbiased, let's be real with it. The Dodgers, when it comes to their talent, not just hitting, but also fielding and pitching, they have some young pitchers, but they were expected to be the best team in the National League. So they're still below expectation. But when you see them start to ratchet it up, it's not surprising. It's good to see, but it's not surprising. This is what they should have been doing from the beginning. Yeah, they've had little side injuries here or there, especially losing Corey Seager, their young, talented shortstop, at the beginning of the season. Teams go through this. So this is one of those things. Are you mentally tough enough to get through the grind, get back in the race, and finish it off? Everything's in front of them, and that goes for the Diamondbacks. Everything's in front of the Diamondbacks. Everything's in front of the Rockies. Just speaking of the NOS, because yeah, you can possibly have 2 teams come out with a division winner and a wild card, but there is no way that you're going to get 3 teams come out like it did last year. More than likely, it's probably only going to be 1 team. That's the safer bet. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one the division winner and then a wild card. No way there's going to be 3 that come out the division. It's just, especially with the Cardinals are doing what they're doing, there's no way all these 3 teams jump the Cardinals. And yeah, I mean, I could see the a wild card coming out the NL West, especially the way the Phillies have been playing, and the Brewers have kind of been like even as well. So all of that remains to be seen. That's really all I have for y'all today. Tomorrow we have a full slate of NFL games. Week 4 of the preseason. All the backups are playing. And I was talking, my mom was like, man, I don't like the cuts. These guys are going to lose their jobs. You're going to have around 50 to 60 guys that play tomorrow, and 85 to 90% on each team are going to get cut. And that's unfortunate, but that's just part of the numbers of the NFL. You start off with 90 players on the team, you're going to end up with 53, 55. Yeah, they got a practice squad afterwards, but it's not the same thing, So that's almost half of the guys getting cut. That's just the way the NFL works. So really, you're going to be watching a lot of backups and or guys that don't even make the teams tomorrow. I doubt that we see any of the main players. I doubt we see a Sam Darnold. I'd be surprised. I doubt we see a Josh Allen. I'd be surprised. Lamar Jackson, maybe he might play because I don't see him getting any play anytime soon this season. Rosen, because he didn't play that third game, I doubt he plays tomorrow against the Denver Broncos. I think that if he's ready, he should play a little bit because Sam Bradford is your starter. But that remains to be seen if Josh Rosen's going to play tomorrow. And then Baker Mayfield. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor, he's the starter. Does Baker Mayfield get any play tomorrow? All that remains to be seen. I know the Browns play on TV again live. My dad was like, man, I'm tired of seeing this team live on preseason. Why do you keep showing them? It's just preseason, man. It don't matter. But they got to show them in the preseason because you're not going to see them in the regular season at all unless you got a player on their fantasy team. But we got the 4th week. Saturday is cut day. Man, I have a reunion this weekend in El Paso. So I won't have a show Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Hopefully I can get back and do it on Monday night or something like that. I'm definitely going to have a show tomorrow, especially whatever happens today in the sports. It might be a shorter show, but definitely we'll have a show tomorrow. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, family reunion, man. Gutierrez family reunion. It's going to be a hell of a time, We're going to be smart with it. If I indulge in anything, I'm going to indulge in a lot of food, man. That's what I've been working extra hard, at the gym just so I can eat. And for those of you who know what I'm talking about, I only work out because I love to eat. I don't care about cuts and all that. I got some cuts, but I don't really care about none of the cuts unless it's like cold cuts. Give me some of them cuts. I work out because I love to eat, man. And my son right now, he's watching this. He's laughing. He's like, man, I love to eat too. You got to work out though. He will start working out. He's like, I'm going to go to the gym with you once I get to the proper age. Couple more years, we gonna be in the gym. We gonna be the father and son connection, man. Big Jesse and little Jesse, Brian, Buddy Boy, Lion, man. That's how we do it. We gonna be in the gym. But yeah, that's to the extent. I might have a little adult drink here or there, but that's about it. We're not gonna get too crazy with it. If I'm gonna jump into a coma, it's gonna be a sugar coma. It's gonna be a fat coma. It's gonna be a French fry coma, something like that. It's not gonna be alcohol. It better not be. Nobody better be handing me drinks out of nowhere. But we'll see. It's a good time, man. It's gonna be a great time. I can't wait for it. But that's really all I got for y'all today. And this thing is acting weird. I'm gonna sign off with a little bit of music. And you guys have a great evening. Enjoy the sports night tonight. Again, Dodgers, Rangers. You have the Diamondbacks, Giants. Man, big games for those two teams. So check out Sports Tonight. I'll be back on tomorrow. A little shorter show just to cover whatever came up, on the wire or whatever. Something I want to talk about. I talked a lot about quarterbacks just to talk about them. Why? Because it's what I do. Whatever. But this is the Fast Break Sports Hour. Thank you for joining me YouTube Live. Subscribe, comment, like, do all that great stuff. Wednesday night, do your thing. Have some fun. Eat some food. I'm out. Out of the ashes, a clear light will shine. Stay blessed.